Marcus Johnson was an ordinary teenager growing up in the small town of Pinecrest. Life in Pinecrest moved at a slower pace, where everyone knew each other's names, and neighbors often exchanged warm greetings on the street. Marcus, a 16-year-old high school junior, was well known for his polite manners and helpful nature. Raised by his hardworking single mother, Linda, Marcus learned from a young age the value of kindness and community. His mother always told him, even when the world seems harsh, be the light someone needs. Those words stuck with him. It was a quiet Saturday morning in late autumn. The air was crisp, and leaves crunched beneath Marcus's worn sneakers as he walked toward the community library, where he volunteered on weekends. Carrying a backpack full of books, he smiled to himself, thinking about the extra time he might get to work on his upcoming science project. His passion for engineering and fixing things often earned him the nickname Mr. Fix-It among friends and neighbors. As Marcus strolled down Maple Avenue, he noticed Mrs. Hargrove, an elderly woman in her late 70s, struggling on her front porch. Mrs. Hargrove had lived in the neighborhood for decades but kept mostly to herself after her husband passed away. Some neighbors described her as prickly and suspicious, though Marcus had never had a negative encounter with her. She appeared frazzled, balancing a small step stool and holding a broken porch light bulb in her frail hands. Without a second thought, Marcus walked up her driveway. "Good morning, Mrs. Hargrove. Do you need help with that?" he called out cheerfully. She jumped slightly but relaxed when she recognized him. "Oh, Marcus, it's this confounded light again," she sighed, gesturing at the broken fixture. "It's been flickering for days, and I'm too old to climb up there myself. I was just about to give up." "Don't worry, I can fix it," Marcus offered sincerely. "I'm pretty good with electrical stuff." He set his backpack down and examined the old light fixture. The wiring seemed loose, and the bulb was clearly burnt out. Mrs. Hargrove hesitated for a moment, as if deciding whether she could trust him. "Well, if it's not too much trouble," she said cautiously. "I don't want you to hurt yourself." "It's no trouble at all," Marcus reassured her with a warm smile. He quickly fetched a few tools from his bag, a small screwdriver, some electrical tape, and a spare light bulb he happened to have for his project. As he climbed the step stool, Mrs. Hargrove watched intently, her expression softening. "You're a handy young man," she remarked. "I remember when my Harold used to fix everything around here." Her voice carried a touch of nostalgia. Marcus smiled. "My mom taught me to fix things around the house, and I kinda fell in love with it. Engineering is what I want to do someday." Within minutes, he secured the wiring and twisted in the new bulb. With a flick of the switch, the porch light glowed steadily. Mrs. Hargrove gasped in delight. "Well, I'll be." "You did it." "It wasn't too hard," Marcus said modestly, stepping down from the stool. "You're all set now." Mrs. Hargrove beamed with gratitude, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "You're a good boy, Marcus. Not many would have stopped to help an old lady like me." She reached into her purse. "Let me pay you something for your trouble." Marcus shook his head firmly. "No need, ma'am. I was happy to help." Touched by his kindness, Mrs. Hargrove placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Your mother raised you right," she said softly. With a polite nod, Marcus grabbed his backpack and continued toward the library, feeling a sense of fulfillment. Acts of kindness like this made his day brighter, too. As he disappeared down the street, Mrs. Hargrove lingered on her porch, staring thoughtfully at the now working light. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of security she hadn't known since losing her husband. Her heart, usually guarded, felt unexpectedly warmed. Neither of them could have known that this seemingly simple act of kindness would soon spark a chain of events that would change both their lives, and the entire town, forever. The next morning, Marcus woke up to the familiar scent of pancakes drifting through the small kitchen of the modest home he shared with his mother. He stretched, feeling content after a productive day of volunteering at the library and helping Mrs. Hargrove. Saturday had felt like one of those rare, perfect days when everything seemed right with the world. He got dressed quickly, eager to grab breakfast before heading to the park to shoot hoops with his best friend, Jordan. His mother, Linda, was humming a tune as she flipped pancakes on their old stove. Marcus kissed her cheek. "Morning, Ma. Smells amazing." "Morning, baby. I made your favorite," she said with a warm smile. Life hadn't always been easy for them, but they made the best of what they had. As Marcus sat down, ready to dig into his plate, a sharp knock at the front door interrupted the peaceful morning. Linda frowned, wiping her hands on her apron. Who could that be this early on a Sunday, she wondered aloud. Marcus shrugged, already halfway through his first pancake. The knock came again, louder this time. Linda walked to the front door and peered through the peephole. Her body tensed when she saw two uniformed police officers standing on the porch. Her heart pounded. "Marcus," she called urgently, her voice edged with worry. Marcus's fork clattered onto his plate as he rushed to the door. His stomach twisted with confusion when he saw the officers. He hadn't done anything wrong, at least, he didn't think so. Linda opened the door cautiously. "Good morning, officers," she greeted, forcing calm into her voice. "Is something wrong?" The taller of the two officers, Officer Jenkins, cleared his throat. "We're looking for Marcus Johnson. Is he home?" Marcus stepped forward, nerves tightening in his chest. "I'm Marcus. Is something wrong?" Officer Jenkins exchanged a glance with his partner, Officer Taylor, before speaking. "We received a complaint from one of your neighbors, Mrs. Hargrove, about an incident that happened at her residence yesterday afternoon." Marcus blinked in shock. "Mrs. Hargrove? But he stopped himself, confused. "I helped her fix her porch light. She asked me to." Officer Taylor consulted his notepad. "According to the report, she claims you were on her property without permission and attempted to enter her home." Marcus's heart dropped. "What? No. I never went inside. I only helped her with the light on the porch, she even thanked me." Linda's protective instincts kicked in. There must be some mistake. My son would never do something like that. Officer Jenkins held up a hand. "We're just here to ask questions. It's routine when a complaint is filed." Marcus's head spun as he struggled to process what was happening. How could this be? He'd only helped her out of kindness. Why would she accuse him of something so awful? The officers requested that Marcus accompany them to the station for a formal statement. Linda insisted on coming along, refusing to let her son face this alone. As they followed the police car in their old sedan, Marcus felt trapped in a surreal nightmare. At the station, Marcus was led into a small interview room while his mother waited anxiously in the lobby. Officer Jenkins sat across from him, his expression neutral but firm. "Marcus, why don't you tell us what happened yesterday from the beginning?" His mouth felt dry, but he recounted the entire encounter in detail, how Mrs. Hargrove had been struggling with the light, how he offered to help, how she seemed thankful afterward. His voice trembled as he finished, still unable to believe he was explaining such a simple act of kindness as though it were a crime. Officer Jenkins studied him carefully. "You're saying you never went inside her house?" "Never," Marcus insisted. "I was only on the porch." The officer made a few notes and nodded slowly. "All right. We'll be in touch." After what felt like an eternity, Marcus and Linda were allowed to leave. On the drive home, Linda kept glancing at her son, seeing the bewilderment and hurt etched into his face. She knew how hard this was for him, and the helplessness she felt burned deep in her chest. As they pulled into their driveway, Marcus finally spoke, his voice small and shaky. "Why would she do this, Ma? I was just trying to help." Linda reached over and squeezed his hand. I don't know, baby. But we'll get through this. The news spread like wildfire. By Monday morning, the entire neighborhood seemed to know about the police visit. Whispers followed Marcus at school, classmates exchanging glances, some snickering, others looking at him with suspicion. Hey, isn't that the kid who broke into that old lady's house? Someone muttered in the hallway. No way. I heard he was trying to rob her, another voice chimed in. Marcus clenched his fists but kept walking, his head down. He couldn't believe how quickly rumors had twisted the truth. It felt like the whole town had turned against him overnight. Even some of the neighbors who had always greeted him warmly now avoided eye contact or closed their doors when he walked past. That evening, Marcus sat on his bed, scrolling through social media, hoping to find a distraction. Instead, he saw a post on a local community page, teen accused of trespassing at elderly woman's home. His stomach dropped. There, in the comments section, were dozens of angry responses, lock him up. Kids these days have no respect. Can't trust anyone anymore. But buried among the accusations, Marcus saw a few supportive comments from neighbors who knew him well. Marcus has always been a good kid. There must be a misunderstanding. His phone buzzed with a message from Jordan. Saw what people are saying. You okay, man? I got your back. Marcus's eyes burned with unshed tears. He felt trapped, powerless, and utterly alone. All because of one act of kindness that had somehow turned into a nightmare. As he lay in the darkness, questions raced through his mind. Why had Mrs. Hargrove done this? Was it all a misunderstanding, or something worse? He couldn't shake the sense that this was far from over. Outside, the porch light at Mrs. Hargrove's house flickered faintly in the cold autumn night, as though refusing to fully shine. The following week in Pinecrest felt like a storm brewing beneath the surface, though the skies remained clear. Marcus walked through the quiet streets with his hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets, feeling the weight of every suspicious glance and whispered remark from passing neighbors. He couldn't shake the sense that people were watching him, silently judging him for something he hadn't done. At school, things were no better. His teachers treated him differently, less warmly, more cautiously, and even his closest friends seemed unsure how to act. Jordan remained loyal, sticking by Marcus despite the rumors. They sat together during lunch while others avoided their table like it was cursed. Man, this is crazy, Jordan said, shaking his head. You helped her, and now you're the bad guy. Makes no sense. Marcus stared at his untouched sandwich, his appetite long gone. I just don't get it. I didn't do anything wrong. His voice cracked with frustration. Why would she lie? Jordan shrugged helplessly. Maybe she's confused. Old people forget stuff sometimes. But Marcus wasn't convinced. Something about the situation felt off, like there was a missing piece to the puzzle. He couldn't stop replaying the moment he helped Mrs. Hargrove, her expression going from wary to grateful. She hadn't seemed confused then. She had seemed relieved. Later that afternoon, Marcus decided to visit Mr. Davis, an elderly retired carpenter who lived down the street. He'd known Marcus since he was a little kid and had always been a supportive figure. If anyone would believe him, it was Mr. Davis. The old man greeted Marcus warmly at the door. Marcus. Come in, son. What's got you looking like you've lost your best friend? Marcus hesitated but finally poured out the entire story, the porch light, the police, the accusations, and how the town had turned against him. Mr. Davis listened quietly, nodding with concern. Sounds like Mrs. Hargrove's fear got the better of her, Mr. Davis said thoughtfully. She's been on edge ever since her house was broken into last year after her husband died. Lost a lot of valuables, and a lot of trust in people. Marcus frowned. He'd heard about the break-in but hadn't connected it to her behavior. But why accuse me? She knows me, I helped her. Mr. Davis sighed. Fear does strange things, son. When people are scared, they see danger everywhere. Marcus felt a flicker of understanding but still couldn't shake the sting of betrayal. He thanked Mr. Davis and headed home, feeling both better and worse at the same time. That evening, Linda suggested they visit Pastor Coleman, the local church leader known for being wise and fair. Maybe he can mediate, talk to Mrs. Hargrove, she offered gently. Marcus agreed, though doubt gnawed at him. Would anyone even believe his side of the story anymore? The next day, word spread that Marcus and his mom had spoken to Pastor Coleman. Some neighbors seemed to reconsider their judgments, while others remained skeptical. Tension simmered beneath every interaction Marcus had in town. One afternoon, while walking home from school, Marcus noticed something strange. A security camera mounted on the corner of a neighbor's garage, pointed toward the street near Mrs. Hargrove's house. His heart skipped a beat. Could the camera have captured something that might clear his name? With renewed hope, Marcus knocked on the neighbor's door. Mr. Lopez, a middle-aged man with a stern face but kind eyes, answered. Marcus explained his situation as calmly as he could, his voice trembling with desperation. Mr. Lopez studied him for a moment, then nodded. Wait here, he said before disappearing inside. Minutes later, he returned with a laptop. I've got footage from last week. Let's take a look. Marcus held his breath as Mr. Lopez pulled up the footage from the day he helped Mrs. Hargrove. The screen showed Marcus walking up her driveway, tools in hand. The camera didn't capture the porch directly, but it showed Marcus leaving after about 15 minutes, carrying nothing but his backpack. Marcus felt a rush of relief, but the video wasn't over. Just a few hours later, after dark, a shadowy figure crept toward Mrs. Hargrove's house from the opposite direction. The figure wore a dark hoodie and kept glancing around nervously. They moved toward her back door and began fiddling with the lock before slipping inside. Marcus stared, speechless. Someone had broken into Mrs. Hargrove's house that night, but it wasn't him. We've got to show this to the police, Marcus said urgently. Mr. Lopez agreed and called the station immediately. The next day, Marcus and his mother sat anxiously at the police station as officers reviewed the footage. Officer Jenkins, who had been skeptical before, now looked serious. This changes everything, Jenkins admitted grimly. Looks like someone targeted her after all. We're reopening the investigation. Relief washed over Marcus, but it was mixed with anger and sadness. He'd been judged and condemned by nearly everyone based on assumptions rooted in fear and bias. Even with the evidence clearing his name, the damage had already been done. As they left the station, Marcus's phone buzzed with a flood of notifications. News of the new development had already hit social media, and people were talking, some apologetic, others defensive. A few neighbors even showed up at his house later that evening, offering apologies in person. But one person was still missing, Mrs. Hargrove. That night, unable to sleep, Marcus found himself standing in front of her house. The porch light he'd fixed glowed steadily, just as it had that day. He hesitated, then knocked softly on her door. After a long moment, the door creaked open, and there she was, frail, tired, and looking far older than he remembered. Her eyes widened when she saw him, guilt flickering across her face like a shadow. Marcus. Her voice broke. I didn't do it, Marcus said quietly, holding her gaze. I never wanted anything but to help you. Tears welled in her eyes. I was so scared after what happened before. When the police came asking questions, I thought maybe you, she trailed off, her voice choked with regret. For the first time, Marcus saw the fear behind her actions, not malice, not hate, but deep, paralyzing fear. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice trembling. I was wrong. Marcus nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her apology. It didn't erase what he'd been through, but it was a start. And for the first time in days, he felt the light in his heart flicker back on, just a little. The days following Marcus's visit to Mrs. Hargrove's house felt like the calm after a storm, but the air in Pinecrest still buzzed with unresolved tension. The police had intensified their investigation after seeing the security footage from Mr. Lopez's camera. Meanwhile, Marcus's life slowly inched back toward normal. Some neighbors offered sincere apologies, while others stayed silent, still wary or unwilling to admit they'd been wrong. At school, the tide turned cautiously in Marcus's favor. Teachers softened, classmates stopped whispering, and Jordan proudly declared Marcus a hometown hero in the making. But Marcus didn't feel like a hero. He was still carrying the weight of what had happened, not just the false accusations, but the realization of how quickly people could turn on someone they claimed to know. One chilly afternoon, Marcus found himself in the town library, a place that had always felt like a sanctuary. As he flipped through a book on electrical engineering, lost in the comfort of familiar passions, he heard a soft voice behind him. "Marcus?" He turned to see Mrs. Hargrove, bundled in a thick coat, her expression a mix of apprehension and sorrow. He hadn't expected to see her again so soon after their last encounter. "Mrs. Hargrove," he greeted politely, closing his book. She hesitated, wringing her hands. "May I sit?" Marcus nodded, motioning to the chair across from him. They sat in an awkward silence, the library's quiet amplifying the tension between them. I've been thinking a lot about what happened," she began, her voice trembling. "About how I let my fears blind me." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I thought I was protecting myself, but all I did was hurt an innocent boy." Marcus swallowed hard, unsure what to say. He could see the genuine remorse etched into her lined face. "When Harold, my husband, died, and then the break-in happened. I stopped trusting anyone." Her voice cracked. "That night after you helped me, I thought, maybe someone had tricked me into feeling safe again, just like before." Marcus's chest tightened. He finally understood, she hadn't accused him out of cruelty, but out of fear rooted in painful memories. It didn't excuse what she had done, but it made her actions clearer. "I forgive you," Marcus said quietly, surprising even himself. The words felt right, like shedding a heavy coat he'd been wearing for too long. "I was angry, still am, a little. But I get it now." Mrs. Hargrove let out a shaky breath. "You're a better person than I deserve." They sat in silence for a while, an unspoken understanding settling between them. For the first time in what felt like forever, Marcus saw her not as the woman who'd wronged him, but as someone just as trapped by life circumstances as he had been. Before she left, she reached into her purse and pulled out a small, neatly wrapped package. "I know it's not much, but it's something Harold made years ago. He loved fixing things, just like you." She placed the package on the table and walked away before Marcus could respond. Curiosity burned in him as he unwrapped the package carefully. Inside was a beautifully handcrafted multi-tool with a worn but polished wooden handle. The initials HH were engraved on the side. It was a tool meant for someone who built and repaired, a symbol of trust passed from one generation to the next. Later that night, as Marcus sat at his desk examining the multi-tool under the soft glow of his lamp, his phone buzzed with a notification from the town's community forum. Clicking on it, he saw a post from the Pinecrest Police Department. "Update, suspect identified in ongoing burglary case." His heart raced as he read further. Thanks to the security footage from Mr. Lopez and additional surveillance pulled from nearby streets, police had identified the intruder, a man named Dale Grayson, recently released from prison for burglary. He'd been targeting elderly residents, assuming they wouldn't be able to defend themselves. Relief washed over Marcus, but it was tempered by the gravity of the situation. Someone dangerous had been lurking in his neighborhood all along, while he had been the one accused and vilified. It was a harsh reminder of how easily things could spiral out of control. The next day, Marcus woke up to a flurry of messages from classmates, neighbors, and even the local news. His story had become public, this time with the truth fully exposed. The headline on the local news site read, "Teen wrongly accused help solve burglary case with key evidence." Reporters showed up at Marcus's house, eager for an interview. He felt overwhelmed but knew he had something important to say. With his mother by his side, he spoke honestly about his experience, emphasizing the lessons he'd learned about fear, forgiveness, and the power of second chances. "It wasn't just about clearing my name," Marcus said during the interview. "It was about making sure the right person was held accountable, not just for me, but for the whole community." As the days passed, Pinecrest seemed to transform. Neighbors who had been distant before became warmer, more thoughtful. Some even organized a community watch program to keep the neighborhood safer. Mrs. Hargrove, now more connected than ever, volunteered to lead a home safety committee, a role she took on with fierce determination. One chilly evening, Marcus stood outside on his porch, staring at the glow of the newly installed streetlight near Mrs. Hargrove's house. The soft light felt symbolic, illuminating not just the street but the journey they had all taken. His phone buzzed with a text from Jordan, "Game at the park tomorrow? We need to settle that last match." Marcus grinned, typing back, "You're going down." As he pocketed his phone, he glanced at the multi-tool sitting on the porch railing. It gleamed faintly under the light, a quiet reminder of trust restored and the power of seeing past someone's fears. For the first time in a long while, Marcus felt at peace, not because the world had suddenly become fair or perfect, but because he had learned how to shine even when it wasn't. And that light, he realized, would guide him no matter months passed, and Pinecrest slowly returned to its usual rhythm, though its people carried a deeper understanding of trust and forgiveness. For Marcus, life had settled into something close to normal, though he often caught himself reflecting on how much had changed since that fateful evening when he'd fixed Mrs. Hargrove's porch light. His name was cleared, and his story had become something of a local legend, but he never saw himself as a hero. He had simply done what he thought was right. One crisp autumn afternoon, Marcus was walking home from school when he noticed a construction crew working on the old community center near the town square. The building had been closed for years due to structural issues, but now scaffolding stretched across its facade, and workers bustled about with tools in hand. His curiosity piqued, Marcus wandered closer, noting the sign hanging above the entrance, "Future Home of Pinecrest Youth Workshop and Learning Center." "Hey there, Marcus," called a familiar voice. He turned to see Mr. Davis, the retired carpenter who'd supported him during his toughest moments. He was holding a clipboard and wearing a tool belt that looked as worn and dependable as ever. "Mr. Davis. You working on this project?" Marcus asked, approaching with a smile. "Sure am," Mr. Davis replied proudly. Town council approved the renovation after some folks suggested a place where kids could learn practical skills, fixing, building, creating. "Figured I'd lend a hand." Marcus's eyes sparkled with excitement. He'd always loved working with his hands, and the idea of helping build something for the community felt right. "Need an extra pair of hands?" Marcus asked eagerly. Mr. Davis chuckled. "Thought you'd never ask." From that day forward, Marcus spent every free moment at the construction site, learning new skills from Mr. Davis and the other volunteers. He quickly became known for his steady hands, sharp mind, and willingness to tackle any challenge. The multi-tool Mrs. Hargrove had given him never left his side, a symbol of how far he'd come and how much he'd learned. One evening, after a long day of work, Marcus sat on the front steps of the nearly completed center, wiping sweat from his brow. He gazed out at the quiet street, remembering how different things had felt not so long ago. His thoughts were interrupted by the soft crunch of footsteps on the gravel path. Looking up, he saw Mrs. Hargrove slowly making her way toward him, carrying a carefully wrapped package in her hands. Her face lit up when she saw him. "Evening, Marcus," she greeted warmly. "Hat challenges lay ahead." "Mrs. Hargrove. What brings you out here?" he asked, surprised but glad to see her. "I heard you've been helping with the youth center," she said proudly. "Seems you've been busy." Marcus shrugged modestly. "Just trying to help where I can." She nodded approvingly and extended the package toward him. "I wanted to give you something, a thank you, though I know it could never be enough." Puzzled, Marcus carefully unwrapped the package, revealing an old, leather-bound journal. Its cover was worn, but the craftsmanship was impeccable, with intricate stitching along the edges. Inside, the pages were filled with detailed sketches, diagrams, and handwritten notes, designs for furniture, tools, and inventions. He recognized the signature at the bottom of each page, Harold Hargrove. "This was my Harold's design journal," Mrs. Hargrove explained, her voice tinged with emotion. "He used to dream of teaching young people how to build and create, just like you're doing now. I think he'd be proud knowing his work is in good hands." Marcus was speechless. He traced the worn edges of the journal, feeling its history, its weight, not just as a collection of ideas, but as a legacy meant to be shared. "Thank you, this means a lot," he managed, his voice thick with gratitude. "I should be thanking you," she replied. "For giving me a second chance, and for helping me believe in people again." They shared a quiet moment, the autumn breeze rustling the trees around them. Marcus thought back to how much had changed, how far they both had come, from suspicion and fear to trust and understanding. Weeks later, the Pinecrest Youth Workshop and Learning Center opened its doors to the entire community. Families gathered for the grand opening, admiring the newly restored building and the work that had gone into it. Marcus stood proudly alongside Mr. Davis and the other volunteers, greeting visitors and showing them around. Inside the workshop, a special display case held Harold Hargrove's design journal, along with a plaque reading, "In memory of Harold Hargrove, builder, dreamer, and believer in second chances." During the ceremony, the mayor invited Marcus to say a few words. He stepped up to the microphone, heart pounding but filled with a sense of purpose. "Thank you all for being here," he began. "This place isn't just about tools and building things, it's about building each other up. About seeing the potential in people, even when it's hard. We all make mistakes. But what matters is what we build after those mistakes, how we learn, how we grow." Applause echoed through the hall, and Marcus felt a wave of emotion rise in his chest. He'd started this journey as a boy just trying to do the right thing, and now he was part of something far greater than himself, a community bound together by trust, forgiveness, and the belief that even the darkest nights can be illuminated by a single light. As the celebration continued, Marcus stood by the window, watching the warm glow of the porch lights flickering on throughout Pinecrest. He knew there would always be challenges, but he also knew that he had the tools to face them, both in his hands and in his heart. Months after the grand opening of the Pinecrest Youth Workshop and Learning Center, the facility had become a central hub of creativity and learning. Kids from every corner of town poured in after school, eager to learn woodworking, electrical wiring, and mechanical repair. Marcus quickly became a respected mentor, teaching with a passion that inspired even the youngest participants. His leadership blossomed under Mr. Davis's guidance, and together they turned the center into a space where anyone could learn, create, and belong. One crisp winter evening, as Marcus packed up his tools after another busy day, he noticed a young boy lingering by the workshop's front steps. The boy, no older than 10, wore a patched jacket far too thin for the freezing weather. His hands were shoved deep into his pockets, and his eyes darted nervously between the workshop's brightly lit windows and the dark street beyond. "Hey there," Marcus called gently, stepping outside. "You all right?" The boy flinched but didn't run. I was just looking," he mumbled, glancing at the tools Marcus carried. "You like fixing things?" Marcus asked, kneeling to meet the boy's gaze. The boy nodded slowly. I fixed my mom's old radio once, but it broke again. Marcus smiled. Well, you're in the right place. Want to come inside and show me what you can do? The boy hesitated, torn between curiosity and caution. After a long pause, he nodded and followed Marcus into the workshop, eyes widening at the shelves stocked with tools and materials. It was a world unlike anything he'd ever seen. What's your name? Marcus asked, handing the boy a pair of work gloves. Eli, he answered shyly. All right, Eli, Marcus said, leading him to a workbench. Let's see if we can fix that radio of yours when you bring it by. For the next hour, Marcus showed Eli how to use basic tools, starting with something simple, a wooden birdhouse. Eli's small hands trembled at first, but with Marcus's patient guidance, he slowly grew more confident. By the end of the evening, the boy beamed with pride at the finished birdhouse in his hands. Think you can come back tomorrow? Marcus asked as he walked Eli to the door. Eli nodded eagerly. Can I, really? Of course, Marcus replied with a grin. This place is for anyone who wants to learn. Eli's face lit up, and for the first time, Marcus saw something familiar in his eyes, hope. He watched as the boy disappeared into the night, already imagining all the things Eli might build in the future. Weeks passed, and Eli became a regular at the workshop, soaking up every bit of knowledge he could. His natural talent quickly emerged, and under Marcus's mentorship, he learned not only how to repair old electronics but also how to build new ones. He brought his mother's broken radio one evening, and together they restored it to perfect working condition, a moment that left Eli speechless with pride. One afternoon, as the workshop bustled with activity, the sound of raised voices outside drew Marcus's attention. He stepped out to find Eli being confronted by two older boys from the neighborhood, rough-looking kids known for causing trouble. They were taunting Eli, trying to snatch the small toolbox he carried everywhere now. Hey! Leave him alone! Marcus shouted, striding toward them. The older boys froze, clearly not expecting anyone to intervene. With a final sneer, they backed off and disappeared down the street. Marcus knelt next to Eli, who clutched his toolbox tightly, fighting back tears. You okay? Marcus asked gently. Eli nodded, though his trembling hands betrayed his fear. They said I didn't belong here, he whispered. That this place isn't for kids like me. Marcus's heart ached at the familiar sting of those words. He rested a reassuring hand on Eli's shoulder. Listen to me, he said firmly. You belong here just as much as anyone else. Don't let anyone make you think otherwise. Eli sniffled and nodded, though doubt still lingered in his eyes. Marcus made a silent vow then and there, he wouldn't let anyone feel the way he had felt when the world turned against him. A few days later, the workshop hosted its biggest event yet, the Pinecrest Community Makers Fair. It was a celebration of creativity, where kids and adults alike showcased their projects. Marcus and Mr. Davis worked tirelessly to set up the event, determined to make it unforgettable. Eli was especially excited, having spent weeks perfecting a mechanical toy car powered by a small solar panel. He'd poured his heart into the project, determined to show the world what he could do. The day of the fair dawned bright and clear. The workshop buzzed with energy as families arrived, admiring the handmade crafts, gadgets, and inventions displayed throughout the space. Marcus beamed with pride, watching his students share their creations with confidence. When it was time for the award ceremony, the room fell silent as the mayor took the stage. After announcing several winners, she paused dramatically. And now, for the grand prize of the Pinecrest Makers Fair, the award goes to Eli Torres, for his incredible solar-powered car. The room erupted into applause as Eli stumbled forward, stunned and wide-eyed. Marcus clapped the loudest, cheering as Eli accepted the trophy with trembling hands. Tears glistened in his mother's eyes as she watched from the crowd, overwhelmed with pride. After the ceremony, Eli rushed over to Marcus, holding the trophy tightly. I did it," he gasped, still in disbelief. Marcus smiled, his voice thick with emotion. "You earned it, Eli. You worked hard, and you never gave up." Eli hugged him fiercely, words failing but gratitude shining in his eyes. That night, after the fair had ended and the workshop had emptied, Marcus lingered in the quiet stillness of the place he had helped build. He thought about how far he had come, from being wrongfully accused and nearly giving up to becoming someone others looked up to. He thought of Mrs. Hargrove, Mr. Davis, and now Eli, all connected by threads of resilience, forgiveness, and hope. As he turned off the last workshop light, Marcus felt something deeper than pride, a sense of purpose that would guide him for the rest of his life. He understood now that the greatest thing anyone could build wasn't just machines or gadgets, it was people, communities, and futures. And in that moment, he knew his story was far from over. In many ways, it was just beginning.